I have previously talked about the giant enemy crabs, the rotting leviathan, but today let's take a look at the Promethians. Recent changes to balance have kind of put Coast in a little bit of a different position than when they were previously, and Promethians, I think, are going to be making a pretty big return in their sort of new style of play. We've got another replay from the World Cup today. This is Alfie up against Kafka. Vampire Coast versus High Elves. Let's take a look at the builds here. We've got Silostra, plus 2 Rotting Promethians, a Mortar, Sirens, and in my opinion, one of the worst units in the game, the Shade Wraith Gunners. We've also got some handgun mobs, plenty of pole arms, and regular deckhands. As for Kafka's High Elves, going to be led by Alariel. Got 2 Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, some Spearmen, a Lothern Sea Guard, 2 Lion Chariots, very good in this matchup, some Illyrian Reavers, and a Noble also on a Chariot. So, a few things about the Rotting Promethians first. What do they bring to the table? Well, first thing you'll notice is they have a smaller model count than most other monstrous infantry. They are only 9 monstrous infantry, though they are mounted, can be, I should say, mounted by zombies that have okay armor-piercing missile attacks. This is definitely a thing. They also have okay weapon strength. Not amazing. It is lower than the total weapon strength of something like Treekin, but 120 armor is really good, and their melee attack and defensive stats are quite good as well. Like Treekin, they do have charge defense against large, which I don't know if that was actually working previously, so I haven't actually tried these guys too much since that changed, but I do think, based on some games that I have seen, quite a few games that I have seen, and some other kind of factors, I can definitely tell you that these guys are going to be a part of the Vampire Coast meta, I think, from now on. So let's talk a little bit about a few other units as they sort of do an artillery trade here. Kafka's focusing fire on the mortars with his bolt throwers, which is a pretty decent idea. That being said, he does have these other high-value targets to potentially shoot at, including the 2 Promethians, and obviously Silostra herself. So, like, already the mortar's gone down, which is potentially a problem, but, I mean, the mortar itself is cheaper than both of these Eagle Claw bolt throwers, right? So depending on how much ammo they actually expend shooting the mortars, which right now they are using a little bit of extra ammo than they need to. Chariots come in for a nice side and rear charge, though, starting to disrupt this formation here. The Promethians trying to block, but are not able to really do so very effectively. Promethians, of course, are some of the few kind of heavy mass units. They're reasonably fast as well. 45 speed is decent for something on Vampire Coast roster. Definitely won't keep up with something like Direwolves. Even many infantry on certain rosters like Skaven or Beastmen, certain types of infantry could potentially outrun them as well. But yeah, the armor-piercing missile attacks are okay. They're not going to do a lot to the Lion Chariots because of their missile resistance. But the Crab charge, Aggro Crab, Angry Crab even, getting in here. And the nice thing too is as they're kind of zoning these guys away, they will get that little bit of chip damage from the zombie shots. Definitely is an advantage of the gunnery Promethians versus the regular Promethians. But yeah, Shade Wraith Gunners, back to these guys. One of the reasons I don't like them at all is their HP is so low. Even with their physical resistance, they're still just going to get absolutely gatted. Their damage output, I believe, actually goes down too from the ROR status. Yes, they do magic damage. Have this Discourage, but the Discourage really isn't super useful against High Elves. Not to mention, Alariel does give magic damage in an AoE, which it does look like she brought that. So if you look here, like these Spearmen have magic damage. Even these Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers actually right now do have magic damage. So they're dealing the full brunt of their impact against these Ethereals. So because of that, I really don't think, I mean, I don't like this unit to begin with, but I definitely wouldn't take it against High Elves. Silostra, though, with her Rotting Promethian summons, able to see off some Illyrian Reavers here, so the Coast is doing a good job kind of defending against these mobile threats, but it is a little bit of an extended artillery skirmish. That being said, again, though, these bolt throwers are using up a lot of ammunition, and while the Shade Wraith Gunners are a little bit more of an expensive target, we actually come over here and have a look at the Eagle Claw's value. Yeah, 500 value there, and 900 value, so this one has paid for itself. This one hasn't quite. But regardless, as long as they use up all of their ammunition on targets that are not Promethians or Silostra, that's going to be very good for Alfie here. See, they switch onto the anti-infantry shot, and they're going to finish off those Shade Wraith Gunners without them having generated any value whatsoever, which is pretty rough for Alfie. That is mean, between those two units, I forget how much the Shade Wraith Gunners are because I never use them, but it's something in the area of like 1,800 points, I would guess, with them plus the mortar. But we'll see. I guess we can always check that out later. But handguns actually do get set. Get a nice little volley on that Noble there. He doesn't have the same missile resistance as the Lion Chariots. He has some, but not as much. But yeah, at this point, the bolt throwers have just about expended all of their ammunition. And meanwhile, Alfie is technically fulfilling the attacking rule, just sitting here stationary as long as he can keep shooting with something. And yeah, Silostra is just kind of chilling in the back for now. The kind of blocks of infantry here are stable, but the bolt throwers, how many volleys? Yeah, 1 volley left there, 3 volleys left there. So in pretty short order, they'll be done shooting. And I mean, they took out 2 units basically, but did do some overkill damage and potentially wasted some ammunition on that. Like, once the Shade Wraith Gunners were crumbling, probably should have switched over onto the Sirens, which they are now doing. Again, with that magic damage from Ariel, or sorry, Lariel. Oh, man. They will do pretty substantial damage, right? They can get some hits. Yeah, I haven't actually taken down any models yet, but some nice HP damage. But that's basically it, right? Last few shots coming out of this bolt thrower here. So we'll fast forward somewhat as elves now advance. And yeah, Vampire Coast just holding the position for the time being. Gonna go ahead and get a really nice, oh, absolutely brutal down the line. Oh man, that literally just like completely deleted 2 units. That Vangeist's Revenge there. Very nicely done by Silostra. Meanwhile, the Chariots continue to come in and attack this flank here. Promethian's now moving to block. Yeah, the zombies have decently heavy mass, but because there's so many chariots like in this kind of blob here, they looked like they were going to be able to pull away, but actually now somewhat being caught up. This kind of little hut here, a little hovel, providing a little bit of a base for the the coast units to kind of counterattack there. But more Illyrian Reavers pouring around the flank here. Going to be surrounding this formation. The archers, Lothern Seaguard, are going to get set and start shooting, but one of them obviously getting deleted by Silostra, up to 133 kills already. Another summon here, this time the Damned Knights Errant, going to be going after these units in the back. And the Promethians just standing and protecting for the most part, and this is one thing that they are pretty good at doing. Yeah, not only because you can use the ranged attack of the Promethians, but the mass and everything come in and kind of keep these cavalry stopped up somewhat. In terms of their stats, damage output isn't incredible in terms of melee DPS, but the zombies, you'll notice if we get in close in cinematic mode, the zombies will continue firing while the crabs are actually in melee, I believe. Maybe not. Looked like it earlier, but we'll see. I guess let's keep close. But regardless, the kind of hybrid role here is pretty good in the fact that they are somewhat tanky, like high armor units. Like oftentimes people won't bring a lot of armor piercing against Vampire Coast just because there's not actually that many super heavily armored units that you would need. Although I would say right now both Depth Guard and Promethians are probable picks in a number of matchups, so you may want to start including once again some anti-large AP, AP missiles, whatever that might be, in order to take these specific units on. Which is why I think the bolt throwers using up all their ammo earlier on was potentially a huge mistake. That being said, Vampire Coast pretty well ahead on the balance of power right now, even though they have sustained pretty substantial losses, and that is primarily because the Promethians and Silostra are so healthy here. So yeah, Noble getting terrified away. Chariots are doing their best to try and keep disrupting, and honestly, credit to Kafka for keeping all these Chariots alive. He still has 2 models here, 3 models here, or nope, just down to 2 models now. And it's mostly down to, like, crabs, sirens, still a handful of zombies, not too much. But the Lothern Seaguard here have just about used up all their ammunition. Balance of power starting to stabilize somewhat, if still mostly in Vampire Coast's favor. crabs, their resilience here is going to be pretty key. You'll see they don't take much damage at all. Some aggressive cycle charging from these chariots could potentially do the trick, and here, this is a nice play from Kafka, using Alariel to support the chariots against the Sirens so that everybody has magic damage. Taking ethereal units against High Elves can be extremely risky because of that, because Alariel is such a common pick, and, you know, quite strong in a number of ways beyond just that, so you're likely to see her regardless, and the fact that she can just take this little AoE magic damage to counter ethereals is pretty nice. It's not always 100% consistent, but Ariel is going to have the, Alariel is going to have the problem of getting caught up in the Promethians, and thankfully Silostra didn't focus her too much there during that push. But we've still got some zombie polearms in here. We'll just kind of switch in and out of cinematic mode a little bit. Get some up-close shots of these crabs doing their work. They're a very awesome-looking unit as well. I love the little crab faces. I don't know why. I mean, they're not little crab faces. They're giant crab faces, but I just love them. I don't know. They're kind of cute in a weird way. Balance power has fully stabilized, though, back to basically even, as a lot of these units have gotten some pretty substantial healing, and cycle charge is starting to wear down the Promethians a little bit, as are the arrows from those Lothar and Seaguard. The fact that the line chariots have really nice armor piercing and charge means if they're cycle charging the Promethians in the side or rear, then they will be getting decent damage. The line, obviously, if the line chariots charge in the front of braced Promethians, they're not going to do as much because they won't get the benefit of that charge bonus, right? But like here, we'll keep the HP bars up so you can kind of see the progression. The Promethians do take some okay damage there. This other unit kind of files in behind. But again, the whole time, they're just getting some melee punch, some ranged punch, kind of flowing in and out on that cycle charge. Both directions, they're taking some damage. So, as long as they can keep tanking here, I mean, a lot of units are getting to their healing cap. The Promethians don't have any source of healing here. Yeah, Alfie going with a very bold strategy of not taking lower vampires with vampire counts, which is very risky, I will say, but can work out in your favor. Obviously, that Van Geist Revenge was absolutely brutal, so Silostra definitely getting her value. Yeah, almost 3,000 damage value there with that little wind spell. So considering her fairly heavy spell loadout, oh, the crab just ate an elf. Didn't quite catch the full thing. Wonderful. But anyway, yeah, with her spell loadout, you couldn't really afford, in terms of magic or gold cost, to take a caster, like another caster with even just Invocation of Heck would probably be a little bit prohibitively expensive. Build's already fairly small, but let's see. The crab rush rolls over. Lothar and Seaguard will get their charge defense somewhat, but as they get disrupted, more and more crabs pile in, and they just kind of get outmassed here. Polearms and regular deckhands crumbling away. Both your crew could actually make a difference, potentially. They do have martial prowess active, at least one of them does. So they're 12 and 28 melee defenses, okay. We'll fast forward a little bit, as it's already been a relatively long game. We want to get to the fun. Alariel's going to throw down one more healing star for this final grind, and really hoping that it hits, you know, just whatever. It doesn't have healing cap space left. These Lothar and Seaguard actually will be pretty key. They kind of provide a little bit of anti-large meat, as do the artillery crews. I guess they're not anti-large, but they're just meat, really. But the Promethians are actually having a little bit of a hard time. That being said, 71 kills, 83 for the other one. Quite a bit of damage value been done if we check. Yeah, 2,200 damage value dealt on that one. The other one here, probably even better. If I can get their card to stay. Anyway. Yeah. And yeah, here we see the crabs actually slow firing in melee, and I don't know exactly if... I believe they need to be in guard mode for this interaction to work. But, oh yeah, Silostra's crab doing a little dance there. She sings. Chariots all kinds of caught up. They're even having a hard time turning around because of all the models inundating them here. If we take kind of an overhead view, especially... Oh, no. That's bad. That guy was actually keeping them pinned in. That one crab... keeping that unit pinned in at least, so that unit of lions is going to pull away. The other unit of lion chariots here still fighting. Noble also cycle charging in and out. Same thing with Alariel. Everyone, all the elves just cycle charging at this point, and all the crabs can do is just stand and take it. Promethians eventually do go down here. This one also, yeah, 2,734 damage value. A lot of that is inflated, keep in mind, because Alariel's been healing these high-value Chariot targets. But all of this tanking done, I would love to see damage taken as well as a stat that we could analyze, because I think that'd be, you know, damage resisted and damage taken, stuff like that, so you can really see when units tank damage. Because beyond the damage they've dealt, these Promethians have tanked quite a bit of damage that probably would have gone to Silostra otherwise. And now, the question is, can Silostra carry this by herself? Because she's going to have to. We'll continue fast-forwarding as Silostra starts to work through these various units. One Promethian kind of hanging around, 3 Promethians even, hanging around into the late game. Very critically, kind of help Alariel take a couple of extra hits there. Nice Song of Enthrallment to debuff the melee attack of all these units. Noble down to only 8 melee attack there. 11 melee attack on the Lion Chariots. Noble gets terrified away. Nice crab swipe at the Lion Chariot. So suddenly things are looking pretty good for the coast. If it's just Alariel versus Silostra, Alariel, I mean 4,000 HP still on Silostra is more than what Alariel has, I believe. We'll see. Right now, this is not good. Silostra gets surrounded completely by Chariots and by Alariel, but, I mean, Chariots really don't have enough to stay in the fight. This one's going to rout here. Noble very likely to rout if Silostra can get an attack there. He uses that little wind spell to also rout some units and debuff their speed somewhat. And now all that's left is Alariel. So we'll pop it back on fast forward. Looks like the Noble's coming back. He shatters. And then it's just Alariel. Song of Enthrallment gets dropped here. So only 21 attack. Wow. Yeah. Alariel's got pretty good stats, all things considered. She's a caster on an eagle mount, but anyway. Yeah, this does come down to quite a bit of RNG, I'm not going to lie, in this late game. Although Silostra, things are definitely stacked in her favor, giving her 150 armor, 42 defense, 52 attack, so that higher attack profile helps. 40 defense, 45 attack from Alariel, also 420 weapon strength. Higher total weapon strength, of course, but given that quite a bit of that is non-AP, you can see when Alariel does get hits, it doesn't do all that much damage. So Silostra's got quite a bit of time to work with here. She does start crumbling, but because Undead is the most balanced in the world, you know, even when a unit is broken, it can still potentially win a battle. And it looks like it will here. Song of Enthrallment gets popped, so Alariel made that mistake like 5 times already, my bad. Alariel isn't going to be getting many hits, if any at all. 1,000 HP on Silostra there, 300 HP on Alariel. Dang it. Anyway. And of course, Vampire Coast crumble to the wind. So how about that? 5,595 damage dealt on Silostra. The Rotting Promethians, 2,414. 3,372. So the new age of Vampire Coast, I mean, it's not really a new age necessarily. You used to see crab builds pretty frequently, and I mean, they were never necessarily weak. It's just people kind of cottoned on and started taking good counter builds to them. But as things stand right now, I do think that you have a pretty good chance with, especially against factions which don't have the greatest anti-large AP tools or AP missiles. High Elves do somewhat fall into that category. The crabs are amazing here, and you can see that for sure. These 3 units, between 3 of them, basically carried the entire battle. I doubt anything else really paid for itself. Like maybe a handful of mobs did there, a handful of mobs did there and there. Everything else was rough, to say the absolute least. Credit to Kafka, he played that game fairly well. The thing is, though, is I think just wasting too much ammo on the artillery, overkilling like these ethereal targets and overkilling the mortar a bit. Had he been a little bit more aware of the targeting priority there and conserve some ammo to go after even Silostra or the Promethians, either one would have been valid targets. Obviously, Silostra is probably the most ideal there, but that could have potentially swung things. I mean, the game was pretty close at the end of the day. Both these bolt throwers do end up paying for themselves, just not quite going after right priority targets. Lion Chariots also do pretty good, not quite paying for themselves, but definitely could have had they had a little bit more support. Reavers, a little bit tough. Lothar and Seaguard are great, though. Spearmen just kind of here to die, which they do. And, yeah, Noble also getting some pretty decent value as well. So, the new age of Coast involves crabs. And like I said, it's not really a new thing necessarily, but it's just sort of a return to what we used to see quite commonly from Vampire Coast. And I have been playing Coast a bit recently. I'm not going to lie, I haven't really tried the crabs out too much in the current patch, but I definitely will. But I've been having a hard time winning with them with more like traditional quote-unquote builds that you would maybe see previous patches with just like a ton of zombie guns or, you know, going super wide. But I definitely think like the Promethians, obviously you've got this Regiment of Renown as well that has regeneration. It is very expensive, 1,600. Extra 250 points there over the regular one, but even just these regular ones are quite good. We'll talk about the non-mounted version sometime soon. Regular Rotting Promethians at 1050. I definitely think it is worth the upgrade though, especially in matchups where you might face some mobile units that you can kind of fight and shoot, you know, alternating like we saw there with the Reavers and the Chariots. I like the Gunnery Mob version for that specifically. But anyway, this video's been long enough. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.